Good morning, everyone. I am super excited to have you guys here on our Path to Profit with Yay, that we host every single month on a third Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, welcome everyone who is listening us live. We are broadcasting this on multiple platforms. And if you're not and you're listening already pre-recorded a session, we're excited for you to be here. So thank you for listening and tuning in into our sessions. The topic of the discussion today we're going to talk is about agile product development for competitive advantage. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ye, and I'm a fashion and retail business consultant. Over the past decades, I have built and scaled dozens of multi-million-dollar private label brands for retail brands, as well as brought up dozens of emergence brands from the ground up. And I worked on both sides of the table, leading merchandising and design teams inside retail organizations, as well as working directly with the factories and supplies across Asia, Europe, and US. And what does this really means is that I have seen firsthand how outdated product development processes really silently can erode profitability. And I've also helped brands redesign those processes to turn innovation into the biggest competitive weapon. So here's really the hard truth for us to consider, that most retailers and wholesale leaders think that they are being innovating, but in reality, they really just hire consultants or adopt new tools that really and try to restructure their teams without a actual innovation in their processes, and which does not a lot of times yield the result that they would hope. Product launches, still lagging, and costs keeping really creeping up on the prototypes and development side. And when the market really shifts, the whole organization starts to scramble to react to the symptoms of the potential root causes that they have not overlooked before and optimized. And speed and agility really out not an option anymore. It's really a survival mode, and we have to have that in place in order for us to stay competitive and be able to keep up with the ever-changing environment within our industry. The brands that win today aren't the ones that just working hard. They are redesigning how to innovate. And they are the ones who driving today's environment into success, right? What it means to be successful. So today we're going to cover a couple of different scenarios and different options for you to think about to start questioning whether you have that implemented in your business. And my hope that you will walk away with lots of valuable information and insights to be able to start really the path of optimization in your product development cycles and in your product development processes. Traditional product development is really linear. So if you think about it, we go from concept to design. From the design, we go to approval, and from approval of samples and adopting the samples and the styles, we go into production. Well, the problem with this linear approach is that by the time we're ready to launch, either your competitors are already out there or the customer preferences already have shifted. So we're looking at a agile brands who treat product development like a living cycle, not a one-time process that is very linear, which is not robust, right? They run on short sprints, 2 to 3 week loops where the sketches, prototypes, and feedback happen in parallel. In agile cycles, it's not about really designing faster. It's about designing smarter and a smaller scale. A brand really doesn't need 200 new SKUs every season to survive. They don't really probably need 20 key SKUs. We always say, what are your 20% that drives 80% of your revenue? So let's say 20 of those SKUs are really your revenue drivers, and you want to make sure that they're validated, that you can be able to protect the margin on those products, and they're timed for when the customer actually wants them. So you're not bringing them in months ahead of the selling season, or predicting how much you're actually going to sell without actual test, and be able to react into replenishments, as well as bringing in variations of those winning SKUs quicker to the season, quicker to the demand, so that you can continuously ride the wave of the winning SKUs in sales. So one of the brands, I'd like to give you an example that we worked with, we've really shifted from two massive season drops to continuously outputting micro capsules. Their agility melt there could really test the market a style within about 300 units. So which is very small compared to what they used to buy, about 1,200 units when they were doing big, large bulk buys. And seeing a real time sell through really helped them to scale, actually only focus on scaling what actually worked. And that eliminated 80% of their markdown liability. Now, that was not it was achievable with their existing vendors, as an example. This only was achievable when they adopted a patchwork ability of to bring in the product within 21 to 28 days from the time we place the order to the time it gets to the end consumer. With shifting that to their traditional supply chain into this pool method of supply chain, they were able to start actually turning the product faster without large commitments up front. And they were able to grow their revenue because they were reacting and being in stock for the items that were actually successful. And really, the think of one of the main takeaways from this example was the iterative design also really reduced the sample waste in general, right? Instead of making 5 to 6 physical samples per style, now they were just making two. And then, if you multiply that across 200 styles, if you can think about your savings and how much enormously you are now able to impact your bottom line profitability by saving and eliminating all this development that they used to do of physical samples. Now, how did they do that? They did that in multiple phases. One is that we also adapted for them is the 3D prototyping. And that was initially resistant by the owners because it was costly to really implement and train the staff how to do it. But overall, the savings that they've done and their ability to go to market so much quicker definitely ROI'd much more than what they would have actually invested upfront. Great. Thank you, everyone. By the way, please do take and send me your comments or chat. If you have any type of challenges that you have trying to solve today, please leave that in your comments. Even if you are listening to this as pre-recording, it allows us to help you to, first of all, answer those comments, and we do answer every single one of them. So as questions come in, it also allows us to know that this content is valuable and allows us to create more of this, especially if you have certain challenges that we start to see that we get quite a few requests. We will create webinars like this specifically to address some of those challenges. Going back to the topic, I would love to just open up for Q&A. So please do send me your questions. I'm starting to see some of them are trickling in already. And you can feel free to send it out as we speak. I will try to address them on the call. If not, we will definitely address them offline. So Mark, thank you for sending your message. And Mark is asking really, doesn't iterative design means more rounds of work and really added cost? So similar belief how it was for our client, it is really a misbelief. In reality, it actually, in the long term, it will actually reduce the cost. And it will reduce the cost by solving problems earlier in a cycle when sourcing and costing data are really already in play. And you also avoiding expensive reworks later. One of our clients cut samples rounds from 6 of them to 2, which saves hundreds and thousands of dollars annually, if you can think about it, compared to how much they actually invested in order to implement some of the strategies that we did for them. So iterative design is very critical if you want to stay agile, if you want to be able to stay competitive within this market and the produce and create product to demand in a much quicker turn time. You need to start thinking about iterative designs and what are the different strategies that you could be able to implement. Mark, I hope this helps. I'm getting thumbs up. Thank you so much. I'm glad that this was helpful. Lisa, thank you for sending in your question. What is iterative cycles slow us down when we already stretched thin? Again, that is a big misconception. Iterations isn't about really doing more. It's about breaking in big launches into smaller and faster loops, right? Instead of beating down the 200 style drop and putting all your resources and preparing this massive assortment for your season, you're really testing 20 SKUs, 20 styles. And when you are testing those, then you're scaling only the winners, right? And you're avoiding weeks of the wasted production on the styles that are potentially might not be where you would hope that they would be, where your customer might not be responding. So with the pool supply chain, if you have that in place, in addition to this methodology, you are now able to really bring in different and test your market with different styles, find your winners, and then potentially take the winners back into your traditional push supply chain where you can be able to get even better margins and as well as order larger quantities, knowing on the styles that they will sell and they are risk free to bring in larger inventory on. Hopefully, this was helpful. But yes, it is a big misperception. It does take some planning and really figuring out the allocation of resources to adapt such a methodologies within your processes. But it's worth the time, it's worth the investment, because at the end of the day, it really helps you to maximize your profitability. Raj, thank you for sending in your questions. How do you deal with trends changing so fast? Like what's hot today might not be totally out in a couple of months. That's exactly why iterative design works. And instead of beating on one big launch months in advance, you're really dropping small capsules. You're testing what's actually selling, and then you're doubling down on the winners. So you're not stuck with the warehouse full of product that nobody wants 3 months later, right? And trying to figure out how to liquidate it and trying to figure out how to sell it. But you're always in one step ahead with what's customer actually buying right now. And it allows you to also react and pivot if your supply chain is diversified between traditional push and pull for the agility. You are now able to also make shifts fairly quickly from going into pull and going back to push on the ones on the that are on the winning styles while you're testing new capsules, while testing the new styles in the pool supply chain atmosphere. Hopefully this was helpful. Great, I got a smiley face. Thank you so much. I'm assuming this was helpful. Please do send in your more questions. I would love to address them on this call. And thank you again, everyone, for listening in. If you're just tuning in, we're very excited to have you on the call. Let's start really talking about also another pitfall that we often see that really affects the ability to speed up the product development phase and be able to make it more agile, is really talking about silos, right? In most brands, design kind of work is done isolated, and they often isolated from the sourcing, where the sourcing is more reactive because they're trying to source already against the designs that are coming into their on their table, and their product development teams are struggling now to figuring out how to actually produce this product that has been designed. And then production only gets to really evolve and get involved into when the POs are actually placed, and that kills both speed and profitability. So when design isn't really aligned with sourcing, you end up developing product with fabrics that either are already not available or at scale, or you have 90 to 120-day lead times to be able to actually develop this particular product. That's why so many brands miss their launch windows, by the way, because of this disconnect. And you'll be surprised that this happens more often. And even business owners that often come to us and says, no, our process is very rigorous, and we have everybody coming in into one meeting before the season starts, and before we start designing. Once we start really executing and looking at how those meetings being conducted, they are still done in the silos. Everybody just getting a little bit of their piece of what they need to do, and they go away and they focus on those pieces. And then after design is complete, when we're talking about the style outs to decide what styles to adopt, that's when everybody again comes back together. But at that time, it's already late. So thinking about the agile brands who really build the cross-function squads, like pods, where they will have designer, sourcing manager, and the production leads working together from day one. They share one development calendar, not three different versions of living in Excel, or if you are in the PLM somewhere, where you have each team has its own calendar and timelines. Everyone actually works off of one development calendar that has triggers and trigger points to help to each team know at which pieces and stage that particular development is. And they all have a say and have all collaboration into what fabrics they're going to choose for the season to design into, what suppliers, where the capacity is laying. They are already based on evaluating the scores of those suppliers from the previous seasons to understand who we want to design more with, who we want to design less with, and so forth, and what are their capabilities. And this isn't just really about collaboration for the sake of collaboration. It's really to protect your margins at the bottom line. When sourcing joins at sketch stage, right? They really say that the fabrics that potentially the designer loves potentially might not be meeting the quota in China this year. And duties will just spike up right now at 15%, and we might need to potentially move to a different region, different factory that has different fabrics and potentially or different capabilities that we might want to consider. Here's some near-shoring alternatives that they might want to present to you that gets you to the market faster, right? And maybe it will be end up 8% cheaper because of to offset the tariffs. So those conversations really need to start first before you even start designing or letting your designers know what to design. And that really comes, and that information becomes very handy when you start bringing in the plan, your design plan or your design assortment plan for that capsule. And that's when everybody in production team needs to really step in at that time to be able to share the difficulties potential they've had with the previous runs, where it could be potentially optimized, whether you're switching to a different factory or you need to switch slightly different construction, or maybe you need to replace certain buttons to something else. I mean, all conversations really need to happen even before you start designing, and they need to continuously happen as the process of the design actually going through in product development, not at the very end, which is traditionally happens. And really, that's how you outpace the competitors, not by just sketching and designing much harder and more often, but really by designing with a real-time sourcing intelligence, with the real-time production input that you are actually having. And if you currently are still not operating that same way, you most likely your teams are continuously working in silos, and you are losing precious time in the waiting periods. And by the time the other team gets to gets those design, it's already too late for them to start be able to help you negotiate better pricing and or potentially recommend different alternatives if you are waiting at that stage when you are planning to adopt the styles. Carla, thank you so much for your question. Our design team feels like sourcing involvement too early limits creativity. How do you balance that? Really great question. And we hear this often between the teams, even when we are trying to embed this collaborative and kind of shift of the like mind shift of the pods, and really thinking about early collaborations, they really doesn't affect the creativity. It's becomes more of a anchor, right, to your creativity. The most innovative ideas really fail if they cannot be produced on time or at the margin that is needed to be produced. So by aligning design with the sourcing at early phase, you're really challenging creativity into what's executable and what is actually profitable. We have, for example, one client that has multiple capsules. They are already on the capsule collection type of calendar that we've put them on. But even at this stage, we're still realizing that even with their capsules, they're not thinking about grouping fabrications, as an example. If they have a denim jean and a denim jacket that's coming in and it's in the capsule, for some reason it's not the same denim yet. So where this is where the sourcing input would definitely, and production input would really be helpful, because they would actually be able to guide the designer, say, hey, can we make this product in the same fabric, or find the fabric that would work for both items, because now we can save on margins, we can save on fabric because now we can buy more of that fabric, right? We can also be able to group them, so that which makes our production much faster and quicker as well, and then we can be able to turn it, because now we are able to get the gray goods, get the fabric ready, so that when we are need to replenish, we can replenish already from existing material that we are safe to bring in and have originally, because we already know that we're going to have multiple style feeding off of this particular fabric. So that intel for this particular scenario could have been a game changer if that intel would have come in at the design phase, right before the designers actually had the guidelines. And it actually promotes creativity, because now they have to think about what can we design, and what kind of product we can give to our customer, knowing the materials we work with. And those materials might be already tested, and we know that our customer responds to that particular material and they love that material from us. Well, let's figure out how to make more capsules within that material or those trims. And really the key in this case, as we're starting to build this type of cross-functional pods, is really not about having more meetings, because that's another thing that a lot of times we hear a resistance. Okay, well, now we have this cross-functional pod, now we're going to have more meetings that we have to sit there together and figure things out. It's really not about slowing them down, but it's really more about having one voice, right? Having it one boat, where you have all this people, all these functions of teams that are rowing into one direction as one. And it becomes to help them to become more efficient. It's really helps to be able to figure out how to do collaboration in a structured way. One shared development calendar, for example, is another big tool that's important in order for this to be successful. One vision of truth, right? So that when we have design team, sourcing, production team all aligned in a single workflow, really they're going to cut down decision loops, and then they will, instead of adding in more frustration, it will actually relieve some of the pressure, knowing that they're designing into something that's already been vetted. They already know that designing with the factories in mind and their capacity, as well as with the raw material availability. So this hopefully helps you to really think about how to talk to your teams and how to structure those pods in a way where it is, again, not just becomes a pod where you now have to have just more meetings and everybody just gets more frustrated. If that's what's happening, then most likely the process is wrong on how it's actually implemented. Emily, thank you for your question. Our team are split across 3 continents. How do we actually collaborate without delays? So geographically, really, it's not supposed to be a barrier. It's really more about fragmented systems that they potentially could be are, and that you need to put, like, all the pieces that you need to put together. If you're still managing, for example, your tech packs in your Dropbox, and your approvals go through WhatsApp or emails, and your costings are in Excel, you definitely going to guarantee yourself delays, because the information is disjointed, and it takes time to transfer the findings from one source of information to a different one. There's lots of room for error. There's lots of manual updating. So one of the fix is to be able to centralize your platforms where everyone works from the same live data. And that's where your vendors can come in into, let's say, vendor portal or into your PLM and pick up the tech packs. They can respond immediately on any type of changes, while your designer and product development team looking at the same changes and at the same communication. It helps you to trigger certain stages as things progress, which allows you to move things faster, so no one is sitting and waiting without, well, no one told me or sent me an email that this was ready. It's all triggered with one system. So having it and live data that is one entry point that then splits up into all these different areas to be able to make this product and go to market is going to be very critical, so that you avoid all of these redundancies. So if as you're able to eliminate this fragmented systems, it allows you to then work off of one platform. Then it really doesn't matter whether you're geographically in different continents. It really becomes now one point of source of truth where people will be coming in and executing this particular process. So thinking about, again, what systems and how you're currently running, if you are already at the point where you can start adopting systems like PLM, then that's definitely should happen. However, you don't want to adapt those systems until your process is actually optimized and defined. So first define and optimize the process, then look at the systems that can help you automate and speed up this processes, so that you don't have this disjoint communications, even though if you are split in different countries. Emily, thank you for your thumbs up. I'm glad that this was very helpful. Please do send your questions. I see more questions are coming in. I will try to address them on this call. And again, thank you for everyone who is joining in and listening to this recording. If you're you're listening later on. Here's the other thing that I really want us to address, is where the industry is really evolving and where the tech powered speed is becomes really important. We are seeing that the AI trends forecasting that they are really not just a hype, and it's a reality. They are coming into our industry, and they are very important to start looking and adopting in order for you to become more agile. The smartest brands are really using AI to scan millions of data points, right? From social media, resale platforms, and D2C websites to predict which silhouettes, fabric, colors will actually perform. This takes the guesswork out from the merchandising teams, and it forms design decisions before a single sketch is even made. So remember, we always say AI is not a replacement, but it's a great tool for us to have in order for us to be more equipped and make better decisions as we are creating product and we are designing new product and prototyping. Which digital prototyping is another really important tool that is very important to start thinking about to adopt in your business, at least for some segment of the product, especially the one that you are thinking to allocate into this iterative design and this pods process. Instead of waiting 4 to 6 weeks for a physical sample, you're going to build a 3D models, right? Test their fit virtually, and present entire lines digital to the buyers. This really doesn't just save time. It also protects working capital. It eliminates the need of lots of prototype samples that a lot of times just at the end are not getting adopted. I've seen brands cut their sample budget by almost 40 to 50% with the 3D prototyping. And here's really the biggest advantage is when you use the digital prototypes, you can sell into the wholesale partners before it's even coming and for them to committing into bulk production. That flips the risk really in the risk equation, and we're not overproducing and really preparing to sell this product at a smaller stage where they can actually start testing in much quicker because they get to see the different iterations of particular winning style for that retailer. You're really securing orders based on virtual sell-ins. That really helps you to create more agile manufacturing or agile speed to market with your product, but also with the helps you to with the financial impact. Tom, thank you for your question. And Tom is asking, we've always relied on kind of intuition and merchant gut feeling, but isn't it AI just overcomplicating the process that worked for decades? Great, really great question, and it's true. We do have lots of merchants and designers who still apply the gut feeling kind of work with the trends. And really what we're starting to see that not only a lot of times it backfires, it moves slow. It's also where potentially they might have not fully predicted where the customer was ready for those trends or not. And today trends really shift weekly, not longer, like where they will be able to sustain themselves for a whole season. And really, the AI doesn't replace the intuition, but it really helps to sharpen it. It helps you to pick the 3 silhouettes that most likely will sell instead of guessing across 30 different options and 30 different silhouettes. If you already have a sales data, it helps you to also granularly analyze to understand what your customer truly responding in, assuming that you are collecting the proper data sets. But your customer might be responding more to 3/4 sleeves and v-necks, but your design team is continuously still designing lots of boat necks and crew necks and scoop necks. So those are really important key factors that are often overlooked when it comes into the design process itself. So those tools are actually help you to make better decisions. So there's definitely should be not afraid of using those tools and implementing some of those tools because they are critical. Now, for brand new brands who don't even have sales data, this becomes even more critical because now you can utilize AI if you do it properly. You can analyze your competitors. You can, what are their top styles that are repetitively coming in season over season? What are their features of those styles? Maybe it's a specific fabrication, maybe it's specific fit, maybe it's specific detail or print, colors. Those allows you to really make some of the educated decision or educated guesses, at least at the beginning, as you are starting to build up and actually gaining some sales data. Great. I'm glad that this was helpful. Thank you, Tom. Naomi, thank you for your question. Digital prototyping sounds expensive, and a mid-sized brand's really adopting it. Like, yes, they are often the ones who are benefiting the most. The mid-sized clients of ours really reduce their sample cost, sometimes, like I mentioned, by 40-50%. One of our clients, it actually ended up being for $400,000 in the first year. And now with the ability of getting some of these tools on a subscription based versus going through a large difficult implementations of systems, they have also lowered their entry point and making it accessible even to a smaller brands. So there are definitely a presence for this conversation, not just for large brands with large budgets, but this is definitely somebody who is in the midpoint or even kind of a smaller client should be looking at and setting them up for success for the future. Does the wholesale actually trust buying of digital samples? Great question. And the answer is yes. So the buyer definitely would like to see the fit and the quality of the fabric and the color. So you definitely wanted to have at least a color palette of the physical yarns and fabrics so that they could be able to see it, or swatches big enough for them to actually feel how the fabric is. And you definitely want to have at least one physical prototype sample, especially of a particular style, so they can understand your fit. But once you develop that trust in the quality fit with your retail partners, then the digital samples actually allows you to speed up the process of testing and ordering so that they could be able to see the different views and how it would look if they want to bring a winning style in a different color, or if they want to change a particular button, or they want to change a particular detail of the style. Or if you are presenting to them and say, hey, here's your winning 3 styles that we know drives 80% of your revenue from us, from our, from what we're supplying. Here's now a line of another 20 silhouettes and items that are piggybacking off of what we already know that works. And it makes it much faster decision for the buyer to make, and it allows them to even test pre-season, especially if you are able to do this on an agile and on the pull type of a supply chain, because now they can test it, understand the demand and the initial response of the consumer to this product, and then they were able to then replenish it and reorder and turn the product sometimes 3 to 4 and 5 times a season, versus they would typically traditionally turn it once or twice, which allows you to then grow your sales and your revenue from, with that particular retailer. So it is definitely adaptable. You would need to have a conversations with the retailer and be transparent of why you do the things you do, and show them the value and benefit of doing it this way versus doing it a traditional, where they look at every sample in a physical prototype and so forth. But it does take some time to build up that trust with the brand, so that they would know that whatever the product that they choose digitally, they will know that the quality will be there and the fit will be there, which is the 2 main critical aspects of the physical samples. And some of the biggest retailers now really prefer it also, like I mentioned, is because they really can make the faster assortment decisions without waiting for physical samples, because those take a lot of time. For style outs is another big one, right? So when we have style out and retailers are scrambling for those samples, having a 3D render digital sample is also fairly sufficient, where they could be able to present that and put it on their board. And really it shifts, allows them to do things faster, and more leaders are starting to realize that, especially in the retail space. So hopefully this was really helpful, but again, it's all about how you present it to the buyer, and you got to present it from the value perspective to the buyer itself, right? A lot of times the big mistake is where you can come in and say, well, we're doing this because we're trying to save cost. Well, for the buyer, they don't care about your cost. What they care about is the benefit for them, right? So you make sure you paint a picture that is beneficial to them. Great. Thank you, Andrea. I'm really glad that this was helpful. And I know we're coming up to our closing time, but I'd love to kind of share another example of a apparel brand that came to us with a really been frustrated. They are a mid-sized brand, and they fall kind of into where their fall collections, especially pre-holiday collections, they always consistently were slightly late to the market. And where they would, by the time they would bring it in and into the market, they were already weeks behind from where the competitors would bring them, and which of course would leave them millions of dollars on the table. So they came in with the frustration, because year over year it's still happening. They weren't figure out why is this happens. And so number one thing is, we asked them, do you have the process of product development and design mapped out? And the very first question we received, no, we don't. We have SOPs, we know what each of our departments are doing, but no one really sat down and actually mapped out the end-to-end process and saw to see where there is non-value added steps that are happening, where there's delays that are happening, where there are touch points that are manual still that could potentially be automated so that you can speed it up. So really their design teams were still sketching without sourcing input. And then only when they finish sketching and kind of figure out what their line would look like is when they would involve sourcing. They were also waiting for about 6 weeks for samples, even though their vendors were quoting them 2 to 3 week turnaround for samples. Once we start actually plotting in all of their lead times that took for their samples to come in, it actually creeped up to 6 weeks. And this is a great thing for everyone to pay attention to. whatever we are quoted by our vendors, we need to make sure that we measure them against it, right? This is where the vendor scorecards are so important, because a lot of times we underlook the inefficiencies that are actually happening. They are also really replacing their POs based on what they thought is going to work well, without really having a data that really would help them to make a decision where this style would be a for sure good seller because on a particular criteria that came from the previous sales that have been analyzed. So you would think that at that size level that all of those kinks already have been ironed out, but you'll be, just to your surprise, there's more of us in the industry who are still fairly disjoint in this process. So what we end up doing for them is we are, number one, we really we mapped up the whole process. We looked at all of their steps with their teams, and we realized opportunities to optimize where we cut down 40% of their non-value added steps. We implemented a piece of PLM system that were not configured before, to be able to actually automate some of the processes that within process steps within this optimized process. The iterative design sprints with the sourcing involvement, we have changed that to become, as a day one, we brought in sourcing, production, and actually a marketing team as well within the very first days of this process, to be able to make sure that the designers are actually designing into what the sourcing and the production and even marketing team is recommending, based on kind of collaborative approach. They also implemented digital prototyping for about 70% of their styles. They did reserve obviously 30% that which were their truly core. That continued to stay within very physical prototype stepping and their push bulk production, where all of the other styles that they were really using for testing the market and bringing in newness, we were able to replace with the digital prototyping. And then we able to start dropping capsules much earlier instead of thinking of when we're going to do a massive launch for the season. So we really changed their mentality from fall, winter, spring, summer drops into more of a monthly drops. And also looking at more timeless product, right? So that could be actually worn all year round, depending on the merchant, how it's merchandised. We implemented some new merchandising strategies as well for them, so that within 1 year, they've actually cut down the launch time itself by 30%. And they were, most important part, that they didn't really burn out their teams, because the agile doesn't mean work faster. It doesn't mean work harder. It actually just means they started to work smarter. They eliminated frictions, and the design process really became more rigorous, right? And it became more agile compared to what it was traditionally before. And that brand now is actually consistently beats competitors to the market and really enjoys healthier margins because they're not sitting on the dead inventory and they're not overspending on product development and hand. So those are really all key factors that helped to come out of this process, and definitely was a great investment on their part in order for them to set themselves up for the prospective future. Hannah, thank you for your question. How do you measure the ROI for these changes beyond speed to market? Really, it's a great questions, and we really track down the markdown rate. We look at the samples, like sample time that it's spent to create samples and sample cost. We're looking at net margin lifts, right? So as we start to eliminate some of those non-value steps and processes and elevating resources, we are now able to also save money on the development of upfront. We also look at the portfolio of vendors. Sometimes we even cut down the number of vendors, which allows us then to go deeper with the vendors that we have, which then also gives us a better margins overall. And in this case, really, we look at, if the drop down, markdown drops, let's say by 18%, and margin grew by 12%, Well, the ROI wasn't just the faster launch, right? In this case, it was really a measurable, measurable, profitable change that really helped to drive profitability, which identified the profit leak and we eliminated, and that's what we try to do for all of our clients. With that, we came to the end of our 45-minute talk that we do every month on the third Thursday of the month at 10 o'clock. So I really hope that this was helpful and resourceful to you, to prompt you to think about how to look under the hood within your own organization. Like I said, if you have any questions, please do always, I'll leave them in the comment. We do respond to them. Please do give us thumbs up if this content is valuable and you want to see more of it. If you have any other ideas of the topics you want us to cover, we'd love to hear from you as well. Follow us on LinkedIn at Yushkova Design. The QR code also displayed. You can scan it. You can then be able to get access to our pro tips. We do also have we write articles every week to be able to share more of our knowledge with everyone that we hopefully touch, and be able to prompt some of these changes within our industry. We also publish the next topics of all of our webinars and executive roundtables, which I would love for all of you guys to join, because again, we're trying to grow the community, we're trying to grow the awareness, and our goal is to deliver value on every of these calls or touch points. Our next event is going to be on September 18th, and we're going to be looking at optimizing the omni-channel strategies for maximizing reach and profitability. So it's a very hot topic. It's actually been a topic that's been requested by multiple of our clients and people who are coming in and listening to this on a regular basis. So I'm really excited to be able to address that topic for everyone. Please also do subscribe on YouTube to our channel at Yay Designs, where again, we share these recordings, but we also share lots of other tips and valuable information to hopefully help you to maximize profitability for your business and reveal some of the pitfalls or some of the profit leaks that you might want to address. If you ever want to talk to us or to me, please do book a call with me. It's completely free. I'm really be happy to have a conversation. In the comments, we're gonna drop a link directly to my calendar. I'm happy to hear from all of you and see how your business is progressing, and hopefully be able to come up with some strategic next steps for you to maximize your profitability. Thank you, everyone. I will see you guys